our ability to support grief. But I would say the best thing that you can do at this time, if you know somebody who you think is grieving and grieving heavily, is to stay in touch with them however both you and they are comfortable. So it could be a FaceTime call or a Zoom call, or maybe that person would just prefer to talk on the phone and not really do the video thing. Maybe it's just email, maybe it's just text. But I think staying connected and being a really good listener. And it's really also important to put the grieving person in the driver's seat of the conversation and the contact, so that they don't feel overwhelmed by your efforts to help them. Some people really prefer to grieve privately, and they need to know that that's okay. And right. you can send them a message of understanding and saying, I really get it, but I'm here, just let me know if you want to talk. But usually just being a really good listener. When I see people in my office who are grieving, a lot of the times it is literally an hour of them just letting go, talking about how they're feeling, talking about what happened, and just being able to be there and be present and listen is a huge part of the healing journey. A lot of my clients will say like, oh, sorry, I just verbally vomited all over your all over your office. And I'm like, it's fine. I just to bear witness sometimes to somebody who's in that much pain and not push it away and be in acceptance of it and do what we call holding the space for them is hugely important. So just know that your presence is a gift, and right. You don't have to know what to say. And you can say, I don't know what to say. I can imagine your pain is so real and so hard. And I think just being able to connect to that person on that level, understanding and accepting the pain that they're feeling is huge.
Okay. No, I mean, that's so great, because sometimes we feel obligated to feel like I understand how you feel and all those things, which can be off-putting. But I love the fact that you said we can just sit in sadness with people too. And I've learned that, through going through a therapist. And sometimes culturally we want to get away from grief, right? We don't want to kind of wish and hope that it goes away. But that's not really like, I'm hoping that whoever is listening to this is that grief is part of the season of life, like happiness is, grief is here also to teach us something internally. So I'm glad you said that. I just want to take a moment for people who just logged in a little bit later. Feel free to use the private chat if you want to send me questions for Sarah in private. If you don't want to ask it, I can ask it on your behalf. But yes, feel free to do that. And welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully this has been good so far. I'm learning a lot already. So I just wanted to take a moment. I was responding to chat, so please send your questions away. This is kind of like a free form. But if you're too shy, and I completely get it, we're all new to Zoom at this point. But, so Sarah, how do we know, like, you describe grief very well, like what to look for, but how do you know if the grief has moved from like regular grief to like clinical depression, like as a provider or someone that we care, even if we don't see them, we can see something to say, because I feel like when you're in a really bad place, you can't see yourself unless and if like someone that lives around you or sees you off. I have great friends who are actually online over 10, 15 years. They can, even when I call them, they're like, hey, they're like, you sound off. You know what I mean? That friendship is there, but like right now in this thing, what can we look for? Like when the person have gone from like regular intermittent grief to like clinical depression, what are some symptoms that we should look for, basically?
Well, I would honestly say, Wantana, sort of as you described, the way that your friends kind of can pick up like something's not right.
Yeah.
Trust your gut.
Right.
You know people, you know that, you know your family, you know your friends, and you kind of know when something's not quite right, and
Right.
you really should trust your gut. Again, I think some of the main distinguishing factor here is when that person, when you kind of no longer see traces of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's almost like a look in the eye that seems a little vacant.
Mm-hmm.
The personality is just not coming back up for air. So a lot of times when you're grieving, you still have these moments of levity. You can even be engaged in like belly aching laughter at times. um, you know remembering funny events that you had with the person that you loved or whatever. And when you're in that place of real serious depression, it's sort of like you can't even really do that. If you're noticing significant weight loss or significant weight gain,
Mm-hmm.
if you're noticing, you know, sort of general appearance wise, maybe really baggy eyes, looks like somebody hasn't slept well or is not sleeping, or even really agitated behavior, high levels of irritability, anger, um, you know, those are all signs that somebody could be moving towards a more clinical depression.
I have two great questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to ask you for like resources. I think that's,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to read the question out loud for you so you can see what they're saying. They said, one thing has been overwhelming and overwhelming is how many deaths have been happening back to back. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like before we can grieve for one, the next happens.
Mm-hmm.
With
Mm-hmm.
one group of friends, we have had several close deaths and also many health scares related to COVID. What tips do you have to replenish or maintain hope through continuous trauma?
Mm-hmm. So we're really starting to talk now about traumatic experiences, right? When you get one after another, we are really talking about being at risk for post-traumatic stress. So the thing that I want to emphasize here is that you need to be aware that you're right. When things come wave on wave on wave, you can't really process through it.
Yeah.
There's just no opportunity there. And so what may very well happen is that eventually when we get to a time and a place and a space where things are, calm down or return to whatever normal is, I've kind of lost the idea of what even normal is, but that a lot of people may experience a delayed reaction, essentially. So in the moment when you're going through things, like when you're in war and you're on the battlefield, you're just like do. You're not. There's not a lot of analyzing going on. It's just thought, action, thought, action, thought, action. And then later, when those soldiers come home and things are quiet, the mind's like, hey, let me review that tape. What happened? What happened? Right? And so people do need to be aware that even, who knows how long we're going to kind of be in this, but let's just say 6 months from now, things clear up and we're kind of back out and about. And, you could end up having some serious reactions and symptoms, at that point, or even 6 or 9 months after that, or even a year after that. So you need to be cognizant of the fact that we're all being traumatized by this, first of all. I mean, I think that's just a fact.
Yeah.
So we really do, we all do need a little trauma education as well. So maybe we could do something more specific on that another time.
Right.
But what I really emphasize for people who are just getting hit one after another with tragic stories, tragic losses, I just try to be encouraging. You've got to keep going. You have to do what you can. A lot of maintaining your sanity, so to speak, is staying organized around some semblance of routine and creating an environment around yourself that's going to give you a sense of reliability and predictability.
Right.
These are the things that we thrive on in times of chaos.
Right.
So, so these are the things also that children look for when they're going through significant losses too. So routine's so important. Push yourself to get out of bed. push yourself to get in some kind of outdoor walk or connection with nature, or something to sort of rev up your system. Exercise, I'm a big fan. Trying to maintain your good eating habits,
Yes.
and eating regularly, keeping up with your nutritional intake is so huge. And getting enough sleep is so huge. And just staying hydrated in a time like this is so huge. Where's your water? I knew it. And when people are in serious trouble, I'm working right now with a woman who's she's having a really tough time, and she's extremely isolated. And I'm like, look, we've got to get you on a routine. We've got to get you on a schedule. I just want